Every family has a secret. Some hide shame, some hide pain, and some hide blood. The people of Ijomu Oro village thought they were about to witness the wedding of the year. The richest decorations, the finest food, the most beautiful bride. But before the pastor could join the couple together, an old woman walked into the church, pointed at the groom, and screamed words nobody would ever forget. An old woman emerged suddenly and shouted, "Stop this wedding! That man ruined my daughter's life." Gasps spread across the church. What happened next destroyed friendships, exposed lies buried for 10 years, and turned a wedding celebration into the darkest day in the village's history. The village of Ijomu Oro had not seen joy like this in many years. From early morning, the entire community was alive. Women carried large pots of soup on their heads. Young girls decorated the compound with flowers. Men arranged chairs beneath colorful canopies. Traditional drummers tested their instruments while children danced around excitedly. Everybody was talking about only one thing. Chief Oguntoye's daughter was getting married, and not just to any man. She was marrying Ayanlere Ajisafe, the successful businessman from Lagos, the rich young man with clean suits, polished shoes, and a smooth voice that made elders respect him instantly. To many people, it felt like a fairy tale. Abeni, the village's most admired young woman, had finally found her prince. At 27 years old, Abeni was respected by almost everyone in Ijomu Oro. She was beautiful without pride, gentle without weakness, and humble despite her wealthy background. Many men had tried to marry her, teachers, businessmen, even politicians, but she rejected them all. Then Ayanlere appeared, and suddenly everything changed. Inside the bride's room, bridesmaids moved around excitedly while helping her prepare for the wedding. The room was filled with laughter. Bridesmaid, one Abeni, after today you will forget all of us. Bridesmaid 2, don't mind her. Just remember us when you move to Lagos Mansion. Everybody laughs. Abeni smiled shyly while staring at herself in the mirror. Her white wedding gown fitted her perfectly. Her makeup glowed softly. For a moment, she looked like the happiest woman alive. Then her mother quietly entered the room. Immediately, the bridesmaids lowered their voices respectfully. Mama Abeni was a woman known for wisdom. She rarely spoke too much, but whenever she spoke, people listened. She walked toward her daughter slowly. Before we go deeper into the story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Mama Abini pronounced, "Leave us alone for a moment." The bridesmaid stepped outside. Silence filled the room. Mama Abeni sat beside her daughter and said, "You look beautiful." Abeni responded, smiling. "Thank you, Mama." Her mother adjusted her necklace carefully, but her face carried worry. Abeni asked, "Mama, what is it?" Mama Abeni replied, "A mother's heart sees things others cannot see." Abeni then asked, "What do you mean?" Mama Abeni continued, "Marriage is not only about love. A man can smile and still hide darkness." Abeni laughed softly and said, "Mama, Ayanlere is a good man. He cares for me. He respects you and father. What else should I fear?" Her mother looked away quietly. Mama Abeni replied, "Sometimes the loudest lies wear the cleanest clothes." Abeni frowned slightly. Abeni became worried. "Did somebody say something about him?" Mama Abeni replied, "No, but since I met him, his eyes have never rested peacefully. A guilty soul rarely sleeps well." Before Abeni could respond, loud celebration sounds came from outside. The wedding convoy had arrived. Meanwhile, inside an expensive hotel room near the village, Ayan Lair, the groom, stood before a mirror adjusting his tie, but his hands were shaking badly. Sweat covered his forehead despite the cold air conditioner. His best friend, John, watched him carefully. John voiced out, "You look like a man going to court, not marriage." Ayanler, "I'm fine." John, "No, you're not. You haven't slept for days. Even during the bachelor's dinner yesterday, you barely spoke." Ayanler turned away angrily. Ayanler pronounced, "Can we not do this today?" John replied, "You cannot keep pretending forever." Ayanler slammed the table suddenly and said, "Enough." John became silent. Ayanler continued, "I buried that life long ago. I changed. I built something new." John replied, "But the truth still exists. No matter how deeply you bury a corpse, the smell eventually comes out." Ayanlere looked terrified for a brief moment. Ayanlere then said, "Nobody knows me here?" "Nobody," John replied. "And if someone recognizes you?" Ayanlere shook his head. "They won't." John sighed heavily. John continued, "I warned you years ago. Running away never solves anything." Ayanlere grabbed his suit jacket aggressively. Ayanlere then pronounced, "Today is my wedding. After today, everything will finally be over." But even as he spoke, his voice lacked confidence. Several kilometers away, an old commercial bus stopped near Oyelagbanwo Junction. Passengers began coming down one after another. Among them was an elderly woman carrying a faded brown bag. Her clothes were old but neat. Her face carried the exhaustion of someone who had cried for many years. As she stepped down slowly, two villagers nearby discussed the wedding excitedly. Villager 1. "I heard the groom came with over 20 cars from Lagos." Villager 2. "Chief Oguntoye spent millions on this wedding." Villager 1 pronounced that Ayanlere Ajisafe must really love the girl. The old woman suddenly froze. Old woman responded, "Excuse me, what did you call the groom?" The villager Ayanlere Ajisafe. The woman's eyes widened instantly. Her bag slipped from her hands. The old woman, "No, no, it cannot be." Villager 2. "Mama, are you okay?" The old woman's breathing became heavier. Tears slowly gathered in her eyes. For 10 years, she had searched for one man, one face, one name, and now that name was here, in this village, getting married. The church was magnificent. White flowers decorated every corner. Soft worship music filled the atmosphere. Guests smiled proudly while taking pictures. The pastor stood near the altar waiting for the bride. Then suddenly, the church doors opened. Everybody turned. Abeni entered with her father. The entire church gasped in admiration. She looked radiant, like royalty. Ayanlere forced a smile as she approached, but inside him, fear was growing rapidly. Something felt wrong, very wrong. The pastor began the ceremony. Pastor started the process of joining the couple. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here before God and witnesses to join this man and this woman together in holy matrimony." The congregation smiled joyfully. Then, boom, the church doors burst open violently. An old woman stood there breathing heavily. Rainwater covered her clothes. Everybody turned in shock. Then she pointed directly at Ayanlere. The old woman then said, "Stop this wedding." Silence exploded across the church. The old woman continues, "That man is a liar. That man destroyed my daughter." Abeni slowly turned toward Ayanlere in confusion. Ayanlere pronounced, "I don't know this woman." The old woman replied, "Liar, you know exactly who I am. And today, you will finally tell the truth." The church atmosphere became tense instantly. Guests whispered nervously. The pastor raised his hand. Pastor asked everybody to calm down. "Madam, explain yourself." The old woman began shaking emotionally. The old woman explained, 10 years ago, my daughter fell in love with this man. She trusted him. She carried his child. He promised marriage. Then suddenly, she disappeared. The church became silent. The old woman continues, "For weeks we searched everywhere, until fishermen found her body near the river." Women in the church gasped loudly. Abeni looked horrified. Abeni shouted, "Ayanlere, tell me this is not true." Ayanlere replied, "She's lying." The old woman answered and asked, Then why did you run away from Osogbo? Why did you change your identity? Suddenly, everybody noticed John lowering his head quietly. Abeni looked at him immediately. Abeni, John, what is she talking about? John could barely speak. John Ironlair, please tell them the truth yourself. Ironlair, shouting. Shut up! John, I kept your secret for too long already. The entire church erupted into confusion. The old woman sat slowly. Tears rolled down her face. The old woman. My daughter's name was a joke. She was only 20 years old. She loved him deeply. She believed every promise he made. Flashback scenes begin. Young a joke laughing with Ayan Lair near a riverside, holding hands, dreaming about marriage. A joke told Ayan Lair, promise you will never leave me. Young Ayan Lair replied, never, I swear, back in church. The old woman. When she became pregnant, everything changed. He stopped answering calls. He stopped visiting. Then one night, they argued near the river. That was the last time anybody saw my daughter alive. Abeni's body trembled. Abeni, turning slowly. Did you do it? Ayan Lair's eyes filled with panic. Ayan Lair replied, I did not kill her. The old woman replied, then why did you disappear? Ayan Lair responded, because I was afraid. Complete silence filled the church. Ayan Lair continued, that night we argued badly. She threatened to expose me to my wealthy family. I left her there alive. The next morning I heard she was dead. Nobody believed me, so I ran. Chief Ajusef stood angrily. Chief Ajusef pronounced, you brought this shame into my family? Ayan Lair replied, sir, please. Chief Ajusef, silence him. Abeni's eyes were filled with tears. Abeni then said, all this time, you lied to me. Ayan Lair replied, I wanted a fresh start. Abeni built on another woman's grave? Ayan Lair answered, I loved you. Abeni voiced out, no, you loved hiding. You loved escaping consequences. Suddenly the old woman reached inside her bag. Old woman continued by saying, there is something else you should know. The church became silent again. Before my daughter died, she gave birth. Everybody froze. Ayan Lair responded, what? The old woman, your son survived. Complete shock filled the room. Then a small boy slowly entered the church doorway, about 9 years old, quiet, nervous, holding a small wooden toy. The old woman introduced a small boy. This is Daniel, your son. Ayan Lair staggered backwards emotionally. Tears filled his eyes instantly. Ayan Lair responded, impossible. The little boy stared at him silently. Little Daniel, Grandma, is this my father? Nobody in the church could hold back tears anymore. The old woman explained everything. After a joke died during childbirth complications, the old woman decided to raise the baby herself, but poverty nearly destroyed them. Sometimes they slept hungry. Sometimes Daniel asked difficult questions, questions she could not answer. Some Daniels, flashback, questions. Grandma, why don't I have a father like other children? The old woman cried while remembering. Old woman continued, I searched for Ayan Lair for years, not for revenge, but because a child deserves truth. Ayan Lair fell to his knees. For the first time in many years, the weight of his past finally crushed him completely. Abeni removed her engagement ring slowly. The entire church watched silently. Ayan Lair voiced out, please don't do this. Abeni replied, marriage cannot survive where truth never existed. Ayan Lair started begging, I can explain everything. Abeni replied, when exactly were you planning to tell me? After the wedding? After children? After 20 years? Silence. Abeni continued, you did not trust me with your truth, so you do not deserve my future. She dropped the ring. The sound echoed painfully across the church. The wedding ended in disaster. Guests left quietly. Food remained untouched. Decorations suddenly looked meaningless. Outside the church, villagers gossiped endlessly. Some blamed Ayan Lair, some blamed fate, others blamed secrets. Meanwhile, Abeni locked herself inside her room for days. She refused food, refused visitors. Her heart was shattered, not because Ayanler had a child, but because everything she believed about him was false. Her mother sat beside her one night, Mama Abeni begging, "Painful truth is still better than peaceful lies." Abeni replied, "I feel foolish." Mama Abeni replied, "No, the guilty person should feel foolish, not the innocent." For days, Ayanler remained in the village. He stopped hiding, stopped running, for the first time in 10 years. He visited Ajok's grave. Rain fell heavily as he stood there crying. Ayanler continued, "I was a coward. I should have stayed. I should have fought for the truth." He placed flowers on the grave. Then Daniel approached slowly beside the old woman. The little boy looked uncertain. Daniel asked, "Are you really my father?" Ayanlere struggled to answer. Ayanlere responded, "Yes." Daniel stared at him quietly and continued, "Then why did you leave us?" That question broke him completely, because no matter how intelligent a man is, some questions have no easy answer. Months later, life slowly changed. Abeni opened a tailoring business in the village. Though wounded emotionally, she became stronger. Women admired her courage. Meanwhile, Ayanlere remained close to Daniel. At first, the child avoided him, but gradually, they bonded, playing football together. He attended school meetings, bought him books, walked him home. And for the first time in Daniel's life, he experienced fatherly love. Then, one evening, the old woman sat outside watching the father and his son play football together. Tears filled her eyes, not tears of pain this time, but healing, slow healing. A hidden secret may sleep for years, but truth never dies. One day, it speaks, sometimes at weddings, sometimes in families, sometimes when we least expect it, because no matter how fast a person runs from the past always remembers the road home. What would you have done if you were Abeni? Would you forgive Ayanlere or walk away forever? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional African stories filled with mystery, lessons, betrayal, and redemption. See you in the next story. Thank you.